This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information, or to volunteer, visit LibriVox.org. Recorded by Kirsten Ferreri. The Spinster Book by Myrtle Reed. Chapter 4. The Lost Art of Courtship. Civilization is so acutely developed at present that the old meaning of courtship is completely lost. None of the phenomena which precede a proposal would be deemed singular or out of place in a platonic friendship. This state of affairs gives a man every advantage and all possible liberty of choice. Our grandparents are scandalized at modern methods. Girls never did so in the distant years when those dear people were young. If a young man called on grandmother once a week, and she approved of him and his prospects, she began on her household linen without waiting for the momentous question. Judging by the fiction of the period, and by the delightful tales of old New England, which read like fairy stories to this generation, the courtships of those days were too leisurely to be very interesting. 10-year engagements did not seem to be unusual, and it was not considered a social mistake if a man suddenly disappeared for 4 or 5 years, without the formality of mentioning his destination to the young woman who expected to marry him. We have all read of the faithful maidens who kept on weaving stores of fine linen, and making regular pilgrimages for the letter which did not come. Years afterward, when the man finally appeared, it was all right, and the wedding went on just the same, even though in the meantime the recreant knight had married and been bereaved. 2 or 3 homeless children were sometimes brought cheerfully into the story, and assisted materially in the continuation of the interrupted courtship. The tears which the modern spinster sheds over such a tale are not at the pathos of the situation, but because it is possible, even in fiction, for a woman to be so destitute of spirit. In them days, as Uncle Remus would say, any attention whatever meant business. Small courtesies, which are without significance now, were fraught with momentous import then. In this year of grace, among all races except our own, there are ways in which a man may definitely commit himself without saying a word. A flower or a serenade is almost equivalent to a proposal in sunny Spain. A walking out period of 6 months is much in vogue in other parts of Europe, but the daughter of the Anglo-Saxon has no such guide to a man's intentions. Among certain savage tribes, if a man is in love with a girl and wishes to marry her, he drags her around his tent by the hair, or administers a severe beating. It may be surmised that these attentions are not altogether pleasant, but she has the advantage of knowing what the man means. Flowers are a pretty courtesy and nothing more. The kindly thought which prompts them may be as transient as their bloom. 3 or 4 men serenade girls on summer nights because they love to hear themselves sing. Books and music and sweets, which convention decrees are the only proper gifts for the unattached, may be sent to any girl without affecting her indifference to furniture advertisements and January sales of linen. If there is any actual courtship at the present time, the girl does just as much of it as the man. Her dainty remembrances at holiday time have little more meaning than the trifles a man bestows upon her, though the gift latitude accorded her is much wider in scope. When a girl gives a man furniture, she usually intends to marry him, but often merely succeeds in making things interesting for the girl who does it in spite of her. The newly married woman attends to the personal belongings of her happy possessor with the celerity which is taught in classes for first aid to the injured. One by one, the cherished souvenirs of his bachelor days disappear. Pictures painted by rival fair ones go to adorn the servants' room, through gradual retirement backward. Rare china is mysteriously broken. Sofa cushions never harmonize with the tone of the room, and the covers have to be changed. It takes time, but usually by the first anniversary of a man's marriage his penates have been nobly weeded out, and the things he has left are of his wife's choosing, generously purchased with his own money. Woe to the girl who gives a man a scarf pin. When the bride returns the initial call, that scarf pin adds conspicuously to her adornment. The calm appropriation makes the giver grind her teeth, and the bride knows it. In the man's presence, the keeper of his heart and conscience will say sweetly, "Oh, my dear, such a dreadful thing has happened. That exquisitely embroidered scarf you made for Tom's chiffonier is utterly ruined. The colours ran the first time it was washed. You have no idea how I feel about it. It was such a beautiful thing." The wretched donor of the scarf attempts consolation by saying it doesn't matter. It never was intended for Tom, but as every stitch in it was taken while he was with her, he insisted that he must have it as a souvenir of that happy summer. She adds that it was carefully washed before it was given to him, that she has never known that kind of silk to fade, and that something must have been done to it to make the colours run. The short-sighted man, at this juncture, felicitates himself, because the two are getting on so well together. He never realizes that a pitched battle has occurred under his very nose, and that the honours are about even. If Tom possesses a particularly unfortunate flashlight photograph of the girl, the bride joyfully frames it, and puts it on the mantel where all may see. If the original of the caricature remonstrates, the happy wife sweetly temporizes, and insists that it remain, because Tom is so fond of it, and says, "It looks just like her." Devious indeed are the paths of woman. She far excels the heathen Chinee in his famous specialty of ways that are dark and tricks that are vain. Courtship is a game that a girl has to play without knowing the trump. The only way she ever succeeds at it is by playing to an imaginary trump of her own, which may be either open disarming friendliness or simple indifference. When a man finds the way to a woman's heart a boulevard, he has taken the wrong road. When his path is easy and his burden light, it is time for him to doubt. When his progress seems like making a new way to the Klondike, he needs only to keep his courage and go on. For, after all, it is woman who decides. A clever girl may usually marry any man she sees fit to honour with the responsibility of her bills. The ardent lover counts for considerably less than he is wont to suppose. There is a good old scheme which the world of lovers has unanimously adopted, in order to find out where they stand. It is so simple as to make one weep, but it is the only one they know. This consists of an intentional absence, judiciously timed. Suppose a man has been spending 3 or 4 evenings a week with the same girl for a period of 2 or 3 months. Flowers, books, and chocolates have occasionally appeared, as well as invitations to the theatre. The man has been fed out of the chafing dish, and also with accidental cake, for men are as fond of sugar as women, though they are ashamed to admit it. Suddenly, without warning, the man misses an evening, then another, then another. 2 weeks go by, and still no man. The neighbours and family begin to ask questions of a personal nature. It is at this stage that the immature and childish woman will write the man a note, expressing regret for his long absence, and trusting that nothing may interfere with their pleasant friendship. Sometimes the note brings the man back immediately, and sometimes it doesn't. He very seldom condescends to make an explanation. If he does, it is merely a casual allusion to business. This is the only excuse even a bright man can think of. This act is technically known among girls as climbing a tree. When a man does it, he wants a girl to bring a ladder and a lunch, and plead with him to come down and be happy, but doing as he wishes is no way to attract a man up a tree. Men are as impervious to tears and pleadings as a good mackintosh to mist, but at the touch of indifference they melt like wax. So, when her quondam lover attempts metaphorical athletics, the wise girl smiles and withdraws into her shell. She takes care that he shall not see her unless he comes to her. She draws the shades the moment the lamps are lighted. If he happens to pass the house in the evening, he may think she is out, or that she has company. It is all the same to her. She arranges various evenings with girl friends, and gets books from the library. This is known as provisioning the citadel for a siege. It is a contest between pride and pride which occurs in every courtship, and the girl usually wins. True lovers are as certain to return as Bo Peep's flock, or a systematically deported cat. Shamefaced, but surely, the man comes back. Various laboratory notebooks yield the same result. A single entry indicates the general trend of the affair. Man calls on girl after 5 weeks of unexplained absence. She asks no questions, but keeps the conversation impersonal, even after he shows symptoms of wishing to change its character.